Hi guys, Gemma Fisher here from Daybreak Dogs in North Somerset, coming to you with Friday Fisher Fix from my office today. Last week I was having issues with my internet connection, but apparently today we're all good. So hopefully everybody got the message that I was coming online at 12 because I wanted to, basically be able to talk to as many of you whilst I'm live as possible. In order to be able to keep informed of when I'm going to be broadcasting, do just go to the Facebook page and click on the subscribe button, the sign up. So when you sign up, then I'm able to keep in touch with you and keep you posted as to when things are happening. Okay? Right. So today I had, in fact, I've had this question many times this week. I have lots of social dogs that I teach, and the social dogs that I teach are not always the best at coming back when they're called, particularly if there's something more exciting than their mum or dad in the environment. So what does that mean? Do you have to suddenly become more exciting, more wonderful than the rest of the world? Well, when they're puppies, maybe, okay, and so lots of singing and dancing when they're puppies to show them how exciting you are. But actually, as they get older, my expectation is that if I've taught you your recall cue, which for me, for my dogs, is come back, and come back means I need to be able to take hold of your collar. So you need to come close enough that I can take hold of your collar. That provided I've taught that well, that means come back regardless of whatever else is going on, which is ideally what everybody would appreciate. And do you know what? I often get this question from people who are very frustrated. They're always late for work when it happens, aren't they? That another dog appears on the other side of the field and you have to spend, half an hour getting your dog back. So I've got 3 tips for you today, things that you can actually go and use this weekend to see whether or not we can improve your dog's recall. Okay, so the first one, and this is one that people that have been to my training classes before will have heard me say many times, but it is such a goodie that I have to share it with everybody, is the tone of voice that you use when you call your dog. All right, so one of the things that I find is that people are quite conversational when they talk to their dogs, which is fine. If you were talking to another human, then yes, conversation works really well. But for dogs are actually looking, when they're listening to us, they are actually hearing sounds. So when we're kind of chatting away like we are now, it doesn't make any difference to them. But if I want to get my dog's attention, then I'm going to use a slightly different tone when I do that. Okay. I don't need to sound cross. That's not what I'm looking to do at all. But here's a for example. So let's say we'll use the dog named Rover for an example. So when I say, Rover, come here, that's just conversational. So it's a very human way of doing it, all right? But here's how I would do it. Everybody turn your speakers down, all right? Rover! Okay, so a big, loud voice, which lets my dog know I need their attention. It's really urgent. I need them right now. It's what I call my where's the fire voice, all right? So you are exiting a burning building and you've got one chance to get your dog's attention to get them safely out of there, all right? You've only got the one opportunity to call them. You're not going to say it in a quiet, Rover, come here. You're not going to use that voice, are you? So I want you to think about just projecting your voice and making sure that it sounds quite different, and that you practice it lots around the house as well, so that your dog understands when they hear that, oh my goodness, I'm needed. All right, so that's the first thing. Where's the fire voice? My second thing is a little game that I learned a really long time ago by a fellow dog trainer, Sue James, and she tells me, if I remember rightly, she learnt it from dog trainer Kay Lawrence, who does a lot of amazing clicker training up at Learning About Dogs in Gloucestershire. And the game is simply, and this is for people that, like, if you've never used a clicker before, this is a really easy one to get going if you want to have a go with the clicker. So the clicker basically marks something that we like that the dog is doing. So if you imagine it's a little bit like somebody taking a photograph, and whenever we make that clicking sound, we're taking a photograph of that moment of the thing that the dog is doing. Now, in this game, the name response game, what we're interested in is when my dog hears their name, the response I'm looking for is that they turn their head, look at me, and that's the moment I'm going to click. All right, so it's the name response, that's the bit I'm looking for. All right, so the game works. I'm going to take 10 treats. I'm going to throw out the first treat to get my dog to move away from me, because probably at that point they're staring at me expectantly. So they move away to go and get the treat. Here we go. So I'm moving away to get the treat. I'm going to call the name Rover. They look at me. I'm going to click. Dog starts coming towards me. I'm going to throw off a treat in the other direction in order to get them to run off after the treat. Then I'm going to get the opportunity. They've gone off to eat their treat. Rover, I look back, I click, and I feed, okay? So it basically works in that little sequence. Honestly, the best way to play this game is to throw the pieces of food across the ground, ideally before the dog gets back to you. So it looks like Rover, click, throw, Rover, click, throw, and the dog is racing up and down your living room, okay? So that's the best way to play that. Now, for some people, they may have played that in our puppy class before, because that's something that we teach very, very early on. But you may only have played it in your living room at home, and I would highly encourage you to play it in a car park safely where you're going to take your dog for a walk, or maybe on the cricket field, or I don't know, wherever you choose to walk your dog. Make sure that you just have a quick round of that game before you look to let the dog off the lead, to make sure that you're both engaged and you're both enjoying the time spent together. Okay, so that's tip number 2, name response game. Any questions, please do just post them in the comments and I will try and address them whilst I'm on live. So my tip number 3 for you was, so the biggie that people tell me is that their dog has a really good recall, providing there's nothing else going on, okay? So I want you to come up with a way that you can encourage your dog to be distracted by something else in a controlled environment. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to ask a helper, and children are really, really good at this. I'm going to ask a helper to maybe feed my dog some of their daily biscuits, okay? Just what I would feed them every day, their daily kibble. And I'm going to call my dog, and as I call my dog, I'm going to instruct the person feeding my dog to stop feeding them, okay? Now, my dog then has 2 choices. One is that they come back to me when they're called, okay? And if I'm using my Where's the Fire voice, most of my dogs would be like, oh my God, she needs us. So they would come running. But they do have a second option. They could go, hey, person, you were feeding me, keep feeding me. So they might choose to stay there and try and bully the person into feeding them a few more bits. So if that happens, all that you're going to do is you're not going to make a big song and dance about it, but you're going to come and retrieve your dog, take hold of their collar, move them back to where you called them from, and you're going to try it again. Now, here's the thing, and here's a really, really big tip. If you are calling your dog away from a distraction, the best way I know to get a dog to come away from a distraction is to come in quite close when I call, and as I call, so here we are, so you're my dog and you're eating something over here, I'm going to call and I'm going to walk off in the other direction, so it's Rover, and off I go, okay? And the key thing is, when you're practicing this at home, you're going to be in a safe environment, all right? But this is something that I want your dog to practice and rehearse, that actually when they're called, you are going to leave and you are going to expect them to come with you, all right? Now, puppies particularly will do this really, really nicely, and one of the things about it and why it's so successful so that you understand why it's so successful is because dogs understand that you have the car keys. You are quite an important person to your dog, even if you don't realise it. So you leaving is a big signal that they need to get coming with you, okay? But certainly like young dogs, puppies, adolescents, that sort of thing, they can sometimes get themselves into situations where they're having a really big play with another dog, or they've gone in and they've said hi, and they find it very difficult to extricate themselves from it, okay? So you going in close and calling and moving away gives them the opportunity to come with you safely, so you often find that that works a bit better. Honestly, if they're rushing around like a headless chicken, if you can get in there to put a treat on the end of the nose and get them out that way, that's another way of doing it. But what I would aim to do is that when my dog is off the lead, that I don't let them get to a point where they're so worked up and so excited playing that they can't respond to me. Because at that point, in actual fact, they're not being naughty, they're just a bit overwhelmed by all the excitement and everything, okay? So it's like a small child, asking them to be able to do, I don't know, maths or English homework when they've just come in from playing outside. Okay, so that was my 3 tips for you. Hopefully those are things that you can go out and you can have a play with this weekend. I'm just going to have a quick look through the comments and see whether or not I have any questions that I need to answer, because I don't want to miss anybody's questions. Okay, so I got a good one from Ian. So this is about Indy. Whilst Indy's recall is pretty generally good, there are times when the terrier in him just says this is more interesting than coming back to me, and he can not pull himself away. And this normally involves something he wishes to investigate, such as a tissue or a bit of plastic has been left as litter. Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? Ask him to leave, and he just seems to mean a pick up and run away. Okay, so yeah, If you do, if the distraction isn't people or it isn't dogs, which with a person, ideal world, not all members of the general public will, but in an ideal world you'd be able to say to a person, could you stop petting my dogs, could you stop interacting with them, in order that you could recall them. But obviously, if there's some stolen treasure on the floor, then in actual fact, that stolen treasure might well be more interesting than you. And Ian, actually, what I will do is I'll look to address that in a future video, because in actual fact, that is partly recall, but it's also partly to do with resource guarding and getting dogs to retrieve. So that's a really, really good question, and I will look to answer that a bit more fully in another video. Okay, let's just have a quick look. So I've got, sometimes my dog will come, but her in her own time. How do you get it more snappy? Truthfully, just by practicing these games and making it more challenging. So the game I just described about somebody feeding your dog some dry kibble whilst you're recalling them, I want you to build it up to, at home, your dog is playing a mad game of tuggy with that person that's acting as the distraction, and you're able to recall them away from that. Okay, and if you can do that in a controlled setting, you are going to find that when you go out and about in real life, that is going to really stand you in good stead. So practicing these games is definitely the way to do it, and using really great rewards. So one of the questions from last week's video was about, so my dog will come back to me when they're out and about. This was to do with the jumping up, so calling them back when they're looking to jump up, but they won't stay with them. And I'm like, well, how valuable is it? How valuable is it to you that your dog stays with you? So when my dogs come back into me as puppies, do you know how many treats they get? They get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and because it's really, really cool that they came back, that they chose me over all the other exciting things in the environment, which when you're a puppy, life is exciting, isn't it? Because it's all brand new. So yeah, playing these games and making sure that you have amazing rewards when you are getting them to come in. Right, okay. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, no problem. I will sort that out for you in another video, because it's a really, really good question, and it's one that I've had a few questions about recently about stolen treasure. I love stolen treasure. That's a video to come, I promise. Right then, okay, so I think we're all set for the weekend. So what I'd like to encourage you to do, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you'd like to hear about when I'm going to be going live and keeping in touch, then please click on the sign up button, which is on the Facebook page, and that will just take you to a mailing list where we can keep in touch, and I can send you out emails and other bits and pieces as we develop them at Daybreak Dogs. And I think for all there is to say now is enjoy your dogs, enjoy the weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next Friday for next Friday's Friday Fishing Fix. Thanks, bye.